Good evening, everybody. Salaam alaikum. And because I'm Canadian, how can I not add bonsoir? It is such a joy, such a delight to see all of you here for the inaugural, the debut public event of the Moral Courage Project. Now, my name is Irshad Manji. I'm the director of the project here at NYU's Graduate School of Public Service. And on your chairs, you should have in hand now a one-pager about the Moral Courage Project, and you'll see when you take just a peek at it that the page begins with a statement made by Robert F. Kennedy in which he defined moral courage. Bobby Kennedy said, and I'm quoting now, "Few are willing to brave the disapproval of their fellows, the censure of their colleagues, the wrath of their society. Moral courage," he continued, "is a rarer commodity than bravery in battle or great intelligence. Yet it is the one essential, vital quality for those who seek to change a world that yields most painfully to change." So, as Bobby Kennedy himself understood, moral courage is the willingness to risk backlash from your own as you pursue a greater common good. And here at NYU School of Public Service, we believe that it is at least as urgent, if not more urgent today, to be developing this kind of moral courage. Why do I say possibly even more urgent today? Because we live in a time of identity politics where it's very easy for angry individuals to point fingers at the outside world and blame all of their own community's ills on others. Far more dangerous, emotionally and sometimes physically, to call out injustice within your group and thereby upset your so-called natural allies. Well, the Moral Courage Project addresses one of the great leadership challenges of our time, to bust out of this us versus them polarity inherent in identity politics, because the world's problems, let's face it, are too complex to have dichotomies that reduce us in this way. And we know that. We know that by avoiding introspection, we produce dishonest results. Dishonesty that infects human relations, skews public policies, and censors talents. Talents from which communities could otherwise be growing. And it's because we see this dishonesty everywhere, that the Moral Courage Project intends to teach, mentor, and engage heretics everywhere. Future events will feature dissident Christians, politically incorrect feminists, whistleblowing Jews, queer gays, by which I mean gays and lesbians who challenge the mainstream of their movement, self-critical African Americans, maverick Hispanics, even renegade Republicans. To name just a few, of course. But I can't imagine a more worthy champion of moral courage with whom to introduce the project to all of you than Professor Abdullahi Ahmed. An exile from Sudan, a reform-minded Muslim, and get this, the intellectual force behind an upcoming conference called, you ready? A Celebration of Heresy. Celebration of Heresy. Critical Thinking for Islamic Reform. If I may be so bold, that's chutzpah. In a moment, we'll get into Professor An-Naim's unique story as well as his unorthodox arguments as he explains them in his new book, Islam and the Secular State, whose English edition we're also launching here tonight. And books will be available after the event for signing and, of course, for purchase. Now, here's the format of tonight. There'll be plenty of opportunity for audience participation. You'll be able to ask the professor questions. You'll be able to ask me questions. He can ask me and all of you questions. I'll get to ask you questions. But to get the ball rolling, I'll be asking Professor An-Naim a few questions of my own. And as you'll see, some of them are about what he's saying, And other questions are about how he developed the backbone to say what he is saying. At the end of the night, we hope that you will apply some of these lessons to your own lives. Please join the Moral Courage Project in welcoming Professor Abdullahi An-Naim. Professor An-Naim, this book, Islam and the Secular State, comes after 40 years of activism. What kind of activism? Give us some of your personal journey.
Okay, to start with, let me say Assalamu alaikum. Peace to you all. Good evening, and thank you for being here. As a law student in Sudan, where I grew up and I was studying law in the 60s, I joined a movement, an Islamic reform movement of Ustaz Mahmoud Muhammad Taha, and that was 1967.
The leader of the movement again?
His name was Mahmoud Muhammad Taha. Basically, I worked with the movement for until the mid-80s, when the movement was suppressed and Taha was executed for political charges, but also for heresy or apostasy. And I left Sudan a couple of months after his execution. And recently, as an American citizen with an American passport, I was able to go back to Sudan for the first time with a visa and go register as a foreigner in my own country. But once inside Sudan, I was able to move freely and I was not harassed in any way. And at that time, that was 2003, I gave some lectures on the same themes of the book, as I have done in many Muslim societies and communities. And the writing of the book was very much a process of a personal transformation, a personal evolution that I thought when I was started writing this book about 4 years ago, I thought this was my final statement. But having written it, now it seems to me clear that I have a lot to say to develop the idea and to carry it, because I'm an activist and I believe in scholarship for social change. I don't believe that it's good enough to write a good book, but that I have to push for the idea and to argue for it and debate it and to actually try. Still, even if people read the book, that is not going to do much by itself until they actually internalize the message so much that they are moved to act on it. And so it is a continuity of my work with Taha's movement in Sudan. In a way, it was also a transformation of my understanding, because Taha's heritage is contested, even among his own students and former followers, in the sense that now some of the former members of the movement are saying that I am a heretic to the movement. So heresy is really a very powerful and a very creative concept. And I say every orthodoxy started as a heresy. And think about it. No orthodoxy was not a heresy at some point. Not every heresy becomes an orthodoxy, but there is no orthodoxy that was not a heresy. Every belief you have was one day a heresy to the dominant order. So heresy is, in fact, I celebrate heresy exactly as our conference proposed, because it is the promise of continuity and rejuvenation.